Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We're happy to still be broadcasting. Thanks to Kimmit down at Co-op Radio for rebroadcasting the show on 100.5 FM. If you're listening to us on the radio right now, you're listening to last week's show, which was a great show. And 6 seasons. Not bad, Darren.
Strong.
Shows. Um, this week has been a very good week for recovery. The BC Center on Substance Use launched its 4-part webinar series on strengthening recovery during crises, which includes COVID-19, homelessness, poverty, but especially COVID-19. So I was happy to be part of that webinar. Darren, did you listen to it yesterday?
I was at work. I know.
Well, there's 3 more.
I couldn't change the appointment that I had. It was at the exact same time it was on, but yeah, I'll be on the next one.
Excellent. So they run noon to 1 o'clock as well. And this is a big deal. For those of you that don't know what the BCCSU is, it's the British Columbia Center on Substance Use, major player in policies for addiction, drug policies, healthcare. In not just British Columbia, the rest of Canada really looks at the BCCSU for research in regards to how to deal with addiction. And we're just excited that recovery is part of the conversation. A few years ago, they created a document called Strengthening Recovery. And not just me, there's an army of us that really are trying to keep that document alive. And there's been a lot of talk about prescription drugs during COVID-19 in the last couple of weeks. So we're excited that the BCCSU also included a conversation about a recovery, which sometimes doesn't get talked about enough, Darren?
It really doesn't. It's harm reduction, free heroin, prescription heroin. Again, we've shared many times how important those resources are, but just as important as recovery. That's where the long-term stuff happens. That's where the therapy happens. And we got to get people talking about that.
So
I saw Alberta isn't allowing free heroin.
Yeah, there's some interesting articles coming out of Alberta, and you can follow those articles. Just recently, they're doing the opposite of what British Columbia is doing. They have created 4,000 treatment spaces in Alberta. The goal is to get everybody into treatment. They like $200 million invested in recovery-oriented systems of care in Alberta. They're calling it the Alberta model, and they just really are emphasizing treatment. BC and Alberta are 2 totally different provinces, and it's hard to navigate when you know both systems, and it's difficult. No other disease can be so polarizing. You're either on this side or you're on that side. I try to be in the middle.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity to see where the success lies, having 2 different approaches.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely it's going to be interesting in a couple of years to see where the numbers are at. And sadly, there's no logical explanation for addiction. There's no making sense out of any. I honestly believe that, thankfully, Canadians have free will to make decisions for themselves. And sadly, the sad part of having free will is drugs kill, no matter where they come from. So more will be revealed.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being given sort of the notion that my addictive lifestyle was like a choice and should be respected as much. As much as I believe in free will, I also believe there's certain mindsets that need force and sort of push and guidance, to get to the spot where your free will is being based on a educated conscience, a self-esteem based conscience, and a self-worth based conscience. And to let people just sort of be who they are in psychosis and craziness. I don't know if that's a service or not. I don't.
So the Strengthening Recovery webinars, they're running every Wednesday. We did part 1. So the next 3 Wednesdays, you can just go on the internet and Google BCCSU recovery webinars, and you can register. They're free. We got expert panels for the next 3 weeks. And really just want to clarify, these panels are not about, what's wrong with the system. These panels are more about how can we continue to always move forward and improve. And so the first one was very successful, lots of good energy, lots of great feedback. A few hundred people from across Canada were part of it, and all the data and input that we're collecting in conversations will be used to create a report for the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions and shared. So that's BCCSU recovery webinars. So go on Google and check that out. Behind me, there's a big picture of a crowd of people. That's not yesterday, so don't worry about social distancing. That was Recovery Day last year. And this week we announced Recovery Day is going to still happen on September 5th. However, it's going to be a virtual show. And so more information, so you can go to Recovery Day BC to stay connected with that on Facebook or online. But we're reinventing that. And also the Recovery Capital Conference is being reinvented as well. So Recovery Month in September is not canceled. It's just being reinvented. Got off the phone with some different Recovery Day committees across Canada, and we're all trying to figure out how to still do it. So stay tuned to that. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO. Thank you for broadcasting our show every week. Thousands of listeners and 6 years of shows that you can replay. Our archives are at Vancouver. No, they're not there. They're at Talk Recovery Vancouver is our Facebook page, and our website, talkrecoveryradio.com. And you can go there and catch all of our shows on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud. Each week, we like to talk with experts and just people that got something to say about addiction recovery. Darren, I'll get you to start off the show. Who are we talking recovery with today?
Yeah, today we get to talk recovery with Shalu from UpLyft Wellness. There you are. Hi, how are you? Welcome to the show. Can you just unmute yourself? Or
no, I'll unmute you. I did it for you. There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to this incredible conversation today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So your business, your company, your website, upliftwellness.ca.
Yes.
Let's start. Just tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll have more of a conversation.
Yeah. Well, I started my clinic as a way to kind of overcome a lot of bureaucratic barriers that I experienced supporting marginalized, vulnerable individuals in the mental health field as a frontline worker. And the one thing that kept emerging over and over again is like, why are there further barriers in publicly funded services? Like, the point of these programs is to help people get back on their feet and restore their dignity and their livelihood. But like, why are there barriers to get through that? One example I can think of off the top of my head is my experience is a lot with people who have dual diagnosis. And sometimes they won't be able to get treatment until they have one thing managed. And the treatment service won't be like, well, when you have that managed, you can come back and see us. And when they go try and handle another part of their diagnosis, they'll be like, sorry, come back when you have the other part managed. And now they're stuck.
Wow.
So I decided to create an organization that's publicly funded to be more involved with the therapeutic supports out there through counseling, but hold their hand and guide them to resources and be that voice for them and be that advocate for them, because self-advocacy is one of the hardest things to do.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. You mentioned dual diagnosis.
Yes.
Just for those that don't know that term, explain that to us.
So dual diagnosis is somebody when they have a mental illness and it's combined with a mental health issue. So mental health and mental illness are two different components.
Okay.
So the illness would be originating from the body, and it's also accompanied by other health ailments. So it's called either co-occurring disorders, or in simpler terms, dual diagnosis. It's a two-in-one situation.
Right. I mean, especially for those, in this situation, possibly without a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And I mean, not many people, I mean, I don't ever remember a doctor diagnosing me with addiction. I mean, it's sort of just like, yeah, you're using quite a bit, you're an addict. I never really considered that like a diagnosis, therefore requiring, medical treatment. And also it's very difficult to diagnose mental health issues if there is that co-occurring issue going on, because quite often, it's one as a result of the other. Somebody's psychosis is a result of their addiction, depression as a result of not being able to stop drinking. Do we see that often, more often than just one thing happening, that there is mostly two?
It's hard to definitively define that there's two, but often enough, they do go hand in hand. So as practitioners, we do recognize and we do a series of evaluations and professional testing to really make sure that we are correctly diagnosing individuals. Especially if you're seeing a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nursing professional or practitioner, you want to run a series of battery of tests to ensure that it's dual diagnosis, because if you misdiagnose somebody and you're prescribing them medication, it can either amplify or begin the onset of other mental health issues. Right. And so in my practice, I've seen that the two often go hand in hand, but there are instances where like someone just has difficulty managing addictions, but they don't have any, they're not showing any signs of depression or anxiety, or someone who is using, for whatever reason, other substances. It has nothing to, they might not experience psychosis or something, depending what they use, I should say. But there are instances where it can be isolated, but in my professional experience, I've often seen the two go hand in hand quite a bit. If anything, the two feed off of each other, and it's a disturbing, we call ego dystonic cycle. You feel crappy and you'll alleviate yourself by it. And because you've alleviated, you all of a sudden feel better for a minute, and then you feel like crap again. And then you're just going to keep going through that terrible cycle. And you get stuck and caught up in it.
It's so complex, isn't it? I mean, especially when you think about our situation, under this pandemic, how much, our emotions, our moods, are a direct effect from what's going on in the outside world. Definitely. Not to say anybody's clinically or biologically a depressant, but under this circumstance, having to isolate, maybe, living all by themselves, they've watched everything on Netflix, they just can't figure out any other options. Like, there's going to be a depression that comes about.
Definitely.
Is there a difference between an environmental influence depression and, a biological genetic sort of thing?
100%. 100%.
Can the one that's influenced from the outside, if that's not treated, can can that go? Can you become a depressant person?
You can, actually, you can. What ends up happening is when your environment puts you in a state where you're feeling depressed, you're feeling blue, and you're feeling out of sorts, and you're having difficulty coping with it, it can lead to people doing maladaptive behaviors. They're going to cope in ways that they think like, okay, this is helping me feel better for a minute. And it might not be an addiction coping method. It could be anything, but often enough, it can lead to maladaptive behaviors. And that will look different for everybody. For example, I got into a car accident a few years ago, and it gave me, I got situational depression out of it. And I stopped driving.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was
Trauma.
like, and yeah, and I didn't think anything of it. But over time, when I was working through it with my therapist, they were just like, this is maladaptive. You're disrupting your life. And our clinic, we're outraged. So I'm now no longer seeing clients who rely on me, but I've like, my way of coping was like, I'm not driving anymore. And then I had to go and get driving lessons again.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you being, from a clinical therapeutic counselor, wanting to help others, I mean, your instinct kicked in to see a therapist, to gain, to get out of this funk.
Oh yeah. It was almost like a natural instinct for me, because I remember I was not feeling myself. And I remember seeing my doctor, and they kept encouraging me to pursue the medical route. And I told them, like, I'm not doing it until you also give me a referral to talk to a professional. Like, the two have to go hand in hand.
Yeah. And you know what, at the beginning of the show, that was that free will I was talking about, that somebody that doesn't have that self-awareness, that maybe has been dealing with that similar situation over a period of time, they're not going to demand that right for themselves of having, a more mental therapeutic service, that, and just go with what the doctors are. And next thing you know, they're popping a bunch of pills for 3 years for an accident.
Yeah.
And how do we get people to self-actualize these situations of being, you know what I mean? Because we're not, those people just sometimes aren't the people to like demand for more resources.
Yeah, if you don't know it, it's really hard. And I've worked with an array of people where I say the term self-advocacy, and they look at me like, what is that? And it's like, it's literally what it is. And given the society that we live in here in North America, how often are we self-advocating? And through all my therapeutic practices and interactions with a number of people, I feel that as society, we're quite out of touch with self-advocacy until we've had crap hit the fan.
Oh, definitely.
And it's unfortunate that as young emerging adolescents and young adults, I cannot think of a time in high school where I was taught, like, this is how you self-advocate for yourself in life, or you need to stand up for yourself, like what that looks like. Pertaining my well-being and my health. So I'm going to go carry on with life. And there's an abundance of everything out there in the community. If something happens to me, I can distract myself. I can change up my routine. I can replace negative coping behaviors with another one. But how often are we being taught how to self-advocate to ourselves? And so there's that. And now you're up against a professional, and it's like, well, where do I even begin? Right. Where do I begin when I don't even understand what's happening, or I'm trying to make sense of what's happening to my livelihood? What am I going to self-advocate for myself?
That's been the struggle for so many, because of how complex these situations are for individuals. Not being able to diagnose on the spot, whether it's addiction or mental health or untreated trauma, like, and so you sort of bounce from resource to resource, and possibly never having the individual's needs met. Exactly. What is the most prominent barrier for somebody beyond the self-advocacy piece? Like, what is it that you see that currently needs the most services?
Okay, so if we're talking about current today, during COVID pandemic, the biggest barrier that I'm noticing is individuals who are aging out of the youth and aging into adulthood, and they've been in the care of the ministry, A lot of services have been disrupted, and now youth are being funneled into society as adults, unequipped, underprepared, because everybody's isolating, distancing, and it's hard to be there with, you know, a vulnerable young adult and help them along the ways like we previously would have. And a lot of individuals who are living in households where it's unsafe or they don't have stable housing and they can't access shelter, let alone resources beyond that to take care of their wellness. So those are the prominent barriers that I've seen. If we're looking across the spectrum and we're looking at individuals who do have their basic needs met, and are struggling during this time of isolation during this pandemic, the disruption of routine and has had a huge impact on people's livelihoods. And a lot of people that I've talked to are expressing that they're now alone with their thoughts, and now they have to actually confront it somehow. Instead of like, oh, if I had a negative thought, I can just go to the gym, or I can just go to the mall, or I can go out to downtown or whatever, right? Now we don't have that. You are at home, either with your family, and sometimes even that can be overwhelming, or you're home alone, and now you're alone with your thoughts, and now you have to confront that. And so looking at from across the spectrum, you've got a range of people who are so far beyond displaced that they don't even know if they're going to make it to the next day. And then you've got other people who have to confront their thoughts and feelings, and they've never done it before. And it's like, whew, where do I go? What do I do? Where do I start?
And you speak of such a large majority of individuals, whether they are having a moment of wanting to seek help, just it's not there. There, like you said, there's so many barriers to jump through. Whether, you know, they can't pull out a debit card, you know, to pay for something. They have nowhere to live. They don't have a phone. You know, they can't sit down at their coffee table like this. You know, go online and seek the help. You know, like the domestic abuse on women has risen exponentially over this, and I mean, I've heard horrible things happening. We don't have to go there. Just it's awful. And right now, there's, you know, hotels within the city and the Lower Mainland that are working as hotels right now and are, you know, providing housing for all sorts of individuals with needs.
Yeah, and I think that's incredible initiative.
But what my concern is, that's a good fix, right? But what's next? When do they get to say, do you want to talk to somebody like Shalu? She's available. Like, do you know what I mean? It seems like there's such a gap between where they are now and being able to sit down in front of someone like you that's going to like be able to actually give them help.
Yeah, not only does our clinic provide them the counseling, we will also personally hold your hand and redirect you to appropriate resources. If we are unable to support you, or if we feel that you might need additional resources, we plan it with the clients that we work with and hold their hand and make sure that they've made it to the other side of the bridge, and then part ways if we have to. But like you said, this pandemic, there is a silver lining, and it's basically addressing the underscored potential of gaps. Like you said, there's a fix, but what about long term? And now we're seeing a huge surge of mental health coming to the forefront. I feel like this pandemic has been a bulldozer, and it's a bulldozer for stigma. We're finally peeling off the layers of stigma when it never should have been there to begin with. If anything, should have been eradicated decades ago. But this pandemic has been more of a bulldozer towards the notion of stigma, and people are coming forward that they need help, that they feel confused, and they're ready to talk about it and not feel guilty, because we should never have to be penalized for being human. And being human is understanding our thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and being better people out of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we, as there needs to be more awareness. And I feel that the BC Mental Health Association has done a great job on working on that and creating some outlets, and they've revamped a lot of their services to be easier accessible, just to, even if it's a starting point. A couple of their programs is the Bounce Back program. They see people ages 15 and up dealing with low to moderate mood disorders and anxiety. And they help individuals as a starting point just to be like, okay, come talk to a professional. What's bothering you? What kind of tools that we can help you get equipped with and redirect you from there. Another one is Here to Help program, also through BC Mental Health, and they focus on harm reduction steps for people who are struggling with substance misuse. So those are two that I find have really come to the forefront for the community here in British Columbia.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear. And what are your availabilities as far as your clinic going right now? Like, what's the process if somebody's watching this show right now? They've got a youth, they don't know what to do, or struggling with finances. What are your options for them right now?
So for us, it's so simple. If you were to go on our website, because I know a lot of people with mental health concerns, just picking up a phone is troublesome, and then you have to talk about it to a stranger. We made it so easy that when you go to our website and you click on the link on the homepage, you can go to an appointment setting link, and you can set your appointment. It shows our availabilities. It shows our counselors that are available. And within 24 hours, a coordinator or intake coordinator reaches out and they will contact you, and you get a full 75 minutes just on intake to talk about what's going on with you. And then from there, we kind of figure out like, okay, is UpLyft Wellness a good fit for you? Or do you just need help being redirected to another resource? And when you go to that link, you see all the available times and appointments. The intake and the first session, so there's a total of 2 sessions, they're completely free. After that, additional sessions, they're subsidized as per household income. So the maximum a family would pay is $26 before taxes.
Wow.
Yeah. And that gets
to
12 services, like 12 sessions.
Yeah, talk about like removing the barrier and the excuse that so many have. And I mean, I've spoken in my past, like to individuals, to professionals that basically have said, it's not what we're capable of providing, and that's it. And so you're also going to help with getting other resources or other services set up for the individual. So basically no reason not to call.
No, if we're unable to help you, we'll find a resource that's there to help you. And to ensure success for people's livelihoods, it's a multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah.
One thing just won't help. You gotta get all sectors involved, and you gotta collaborate. And the more we collaborate and the more we talk about this, that's how we bring down these barriers as a group. And as crappy as this pandemic has been, like I said, it's been a bulldozer to the concept of stigma. And I think we should be riding this momentum out and talking about it actively, and how platforms across the economy, across different sectors, we can come together to help people however we can.
Well said. Shalu, you've been like years working on the front lines. It says you were an at-risk youth worker, working with vulnerable and marginalized youth, special needs community, with adults, and currently working on your psychiatric nursing degree.
Yes.
I mean, can I ask, like, what was it for you that inspired you to get in, like, especially spending, the first of it at the, on the front lines?
Growing up, my family instilled the concept of community and being part of something bigger than myself. And And it's just really, really beautiful the way they instilled it with me. They're like, I might be just one person, but if I dedicate myself to my community, I will learn to see all the different facets of myself. And so for me, when I think of me, I think of community, and everything I've achieved and I'm pursuing is for the betterment of my community. And my mantra is to do more and to be more. That's what it comes down to. If I can do more and be more for my community, then I feel whole for myself.
Oh, that just gave me a little tingle up the spine. Do more, be more.
It took a lot of adversity to come to that. Like I went through my own pile of crap to respect that notion, but I'm grateful that it was taught to me.
Absolutely. How to rise above, how to be on top of all of that, no matter where you came from or what you went through. Like that do more, be more mantra is absolutely amazing. It's, as I sit here in the comfort of my home, not feeling any sort of economic threat currently right now, my kids are healthy. It's so easy, as much time as I'm spending with just my family, to complain about the stuff that's hindering my life. And just speaking with you and hearing about the domestic abuse, like there's so many people right now going through so much more, and now have just been given so many more barriers. And so I think sometimes to myself, like, what can I do and be more than I am right now? And amazing to have spoken with you, to sort of remind me of that.
It's an ever-evolving process.
Yeah. And I'm just, I'm feeling really hopeful now that you've just said those things around this whole deal, the silver linings, being able to see really, who got left behind, and that, under these easy fixes can take place, and hopefully, our governments can be held accountable to keep those things going longer. So Definitely. Thank you very much for talking recovery with us today.
Yes. Shalu. Thank you so much for having me.
So we'll have the connection to the UpLyft Wellness on our webpage. Check it out. No excuses not to call. Talk with Shalu or anybody else that's there, and find out how they can help.
Yes.
Whatever barrier and needs that you need right now.
Definitely. And I just want to say, if anybody is feeling like they're being pushed to the edge, I want to just recommend, please reach out to your local crisis center. They're available 24/7 as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on Talk Recovery, and if you're listening on the radio, this is Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. That was Shalu from UpLyft Wellness, and we will also be having our second guest coming up any second now. It's Giuseppe. Before, as we are going and bringing in Darian, I want to give a shout out. We just had a Mother's Day. That day could have been difficult for some. It could have been a reason to celebrate for others. Just a shout out to all the moms out there who've been through it, who've lost, who are pushing through this situation, doing the best that they can. Shout out to all you moms.
Hey, Darian, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Awesome.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Darian. Hey. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. We're coming to you live on Facebook here, and special shout out to Last Door in Westminster House. Talk Recovery Radio is powered by New West Recovery. And thanks Co-op Radio for giving us airtime every Thursday at noon. Darian, you just celebrated a year clean. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so One thing about recovery, we talk about connection, and we talk about you're in a 12-step program, so you go to 12-step meetings, and a lot of fear was happening that we'd lose the connection piece when it comes to recovery. Did you feel connected to people at your cake?
Yes, I did feel connected to people. Just hearing them share about me when I first came to the last door, and now what it's like, it's different, but like I feel totally connected with the people that I'm around.
Yeah, it definitely was. You gave me a little bit of inspiration when I felt the energy and everybody talking about your cake and how it's going to be a big cake. And, it's all online, it's virtual. It's just, you never would have heard those conversations a year ago. And so just reminded me how resilient the recovery community is. And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, 12-step culture went online after March 13th with COVID, and thousands of meetings are now online with thousands of people every day joining them. It's all volunteer run, so props out to that. Wanted to bring you on the show because a lot of times, Darian, people talk about co-occurring issues and recovery and the difficulty in finding recovery. I asked to make sure it was okay to talk about this, and you grew up um, not knowing what was all wrong with you because of your drug use. Tell our listeners what's happened to you in the last year.
Well, I I came to the last door for treatment, and I thought I just came here to deal with like drugs and alcohol, but I I kind of not like kind of realized that I had other issues to deal with, like my behavior and just like obsession with like everything. And yeah, like I didn't know everything that was wrong with me. It just like I knew something was there throughout my life. It just like I don't I just didn't know what. And like coming to the last door and like with Ryan's help, getting me to see a psychiatrist and all of that to get diagnosed, and the the psychiatrist helping me and asking me questions and was very helpful.
And your diagnosis was?
My diagnosis was autism.
And so when you were able to find out, you come to rehab, most people, I remember going to rehab, most people are like, I ain't got no problems. It's you, it's all of you. It's my mom, it's my dad, it's my school teachers. It's definitely not me. So how are you going to teach me how to fix them? Did you have a little bit of that? And then when you got into this understanding of autism and addiction, how did you feel when you realized you had an answer?
Well, yes, like I expected everyone to fix me at first because I didn't want to take full responsibility for everything. So I was expecting this treatment center and the caseworkers to fix me, but I realized that I can only change myself. So um, finding out the answer, like for all of this and me getting diagnosed with autism was really helpful because I got to find a lot of information about myself, and I'm just learning new things all the time, which is good.
Nice. There's definitely some families out there that have similar stories to you, and you were defiant in the beginning, like like I'm not doing this, and you said something pretty special there that you realized that you had to fix yourself. How did you come to that realization? Like you just woke up in the morning, had toast, and like, hey, I gotta fix myself. Like because that's the missing link between you and somebody that's possibly still using, on the streets or in their basement. So what did you do? How did you do it?
Well, one thing that I had to realize is that it wasn't people around me and things that was the problem. It was me that was the problem. And I I thought to myself, and I'm like people cannot change me. I cannot change people. I can just change myself. So I of course people can help me and guide me, but they cannot do it for me. So I got some help from some really good peers and my caseworkers, and I worked on this throughout this last year, and it was really hard, to be honest. But I've had some tough times, but it's gotten better. Like I still have struggles, but it's my life is not a constant struggle anymore.
Yeah, recovery doesn't mean bliss and forever, laughter and just good times. I mean, sadly, life is life, and there's good days, bad days, and days that you just don't care. So, family. I heard your mom and dad participated in your celebration of your 1 year. Tell us about that. Like, was that connection? How's that connection changed from the Darien that showed up to New West, a year ago to the Darien that's today? What kind of hope can you give other parents?
Well, my connection between me and my parents, I didn't have a good relationship with my mom to start off with. I was really mean and abusive, and I was always not getting along with her. But me and my dad had a better relationship. It was not perfect, but it was better than me and my mom. So then coming to treatment, I got to rebuild the relationship with my dad and my mom. And I found it really good, and I realized how much of a mean person I was, and now I know what I can do to change and to make it better, and so I can be a better son. And at the meeting on Monday at my cake, my mom shared, and she just hearing her say that she was proud of me, it made me emotional, and I actually started crying because when she said that, I remembered of all the bad times I've treated her, and it came back to me, and I'm like, that's the only thing that I thought of, and I felt really shitty. But just hearing her say that she's proud of me, like it made me feel really happy, and I feel like me and my mom's relationship is better, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's almost like recovery makes it okay to be vulnerable and makes it okay for you to hear what people are saying and actually understand it. And that's what the tears are. It's just having an ability to understand it, and having the ability to take it all in and realize that people are happy to see you and people are happy to be around you, and so forth. Got to talk to you about Bazinga. So, which is great that you can still, have fun during all this, and you have a T-shirt that goes around. So just, I want you to share that story because it's and I'm surprised you're not wearing your shirt right now. We'll have to post a picture of it on the social media feed later on.
Yeah, I'm not wearing it right now because it's dirty, but yeah. So basically, I got the word Bazinga from one of the episodes and most of the season, and season 5, I think, in Big Bang Theory.
Of which show? Of which show?
Oh, Big Bang Theory.
The Big Bang thing. Okay.
Yeah, and Bazinga means I got you, and it also means go F yourself. So I kind of use that in recovery, and I kind of basically use that to say I'm going to use this word and use recovery and use this word to like say, I'm gonna like, I'm gonna tell addiction to go F itself by using
All right.
recovery and helping myself.
So you made a t-shirt, and what's your new phrase?
It says, in addiction bazingas us, but with recovery, we bazinga addiction.
Have you seen that, Darren? Have you
Oh, I
seen it?
haven't.
Yeah, I'm actually looking to see if I can share a screen with a picture of it. You know, and it's just the getting feedback here. Been good so far.
If anybody knows anything about being completely foolish and silly in recovery, it's this guy right here.
Yes, yes. And that's what recovery is all about. I mean, if you can't have fun, you know, what's the saying? Like, why bother doing it, correct?
Well, I think that was the missing component with addiction or living in addiction, or, you know, like Darian's describing how he's treating his mom. There's never a moment under any circumstance where you want to discuss that or have the ability emotionally to discuss that and admit that. And for the first time, being able to sit in a group of relatable people and poke fun and make fun of myself, and you know, it was the first time I was able to express. And then, you know, and with that, I mean, I had the same admissions about how I treated, you know, mom and dad, and it's never going to feel good. But as long as somebody today is saying they're proud of me, then I can openly talk about how I behaved in the past, and never given anybody a reason to say they were proud of me, you know. So I can definitely relate.
Yeah, you can feel it. It's pretty amazing. So Darian, what are you doing? So you um, started your recovery journey before COVID-19, and you were still in the process of, you know, the treatment process, I guess you can say, after COVID-19 kind of happened and we all got onto lockdown. Do you feel like you need to work harder, or does it just not even, you know, how's it feeling? How's COVID-19 affected your recovery?
Well, a few things have changed. Like, we can't go to meetings, like we can't physically walk to meetings and like visit with people before and after the meetings. And that's a really good way of connecting with like the alumni and like other people in the program. And then also, like, alumni cannot come here to visit because they before COVID they used to come here and visit with us, and some of them actually sponsor some of the people here. So it's kind of hard now. But I think a lot of people are still going to parks and going over step work with their sponsors if they have a sponsor outside the house. And um, I I see, like, I think there's some challenges to it, but I think that there's ways to work around it and make things work with COVID.
Mm. So how old are you, Darian?
I am 21 years old.
So you've got a whole life ahead of you.
Yeah.
You know, how's your hopes, dreams, and goals changed?
Well, now that like I've gotten clean at a young age, like I can do a lot of things now and like experience a lot of new things like living clean. So a few things that I want to do is travel around the world and go to meetings in different places like in California and Mexico, and
Sweet.
yeah, and just the main thing is like just like traveling and visiting with my family now.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Darian. I appreciate your story. Thanks for the courage of telling your story. You know, somewhere out there, there's some kid with autism who's using drugs and whose family's suffering. And, you know, a lot of people thought, you know what, like this is too much work and not possible. And you proved you prove it, that recovery is possible no matter what. So big shout out to you. Really appreciate it. And if you're out there and your addiction's causing harms to you, there's a way out. So thanks for being on the show, Darian. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
Darian.
you for having me.
Excellent. So Darian, that was Darian sharing his personal story. We come to you live every Thursday from Zoom live right now. Hopefully one day Darren and I will be back in the studio to do live shows from the radio. A little difficult to do live radio shows with a bunch of microphones that are shared with a bunch of people. So bit of a stoppage there. Don't forget, follow Recovery Day BC with all the latest and new information on how Recovery Day, Recovery Capital Conference, and the Recovery Month is going to happen still virtually. So they're not canceled. Yeah. And also, for those of you that have been following our show, you know about Clean, Sober, and Proud. Some changes there. We haven't figured out what we're going to do for Clean, Sober, and Proud, but if you go to Vancouver Pride's website, Facebook page, they've just launched a bunch of new information on what Pride's going to look like in Vancouver during 2020. So lots of information there. And they just launched a new logo and so forth. So just, give them a like, give them a share, just show some love. They're going through a lot. I mean, they're a big organization that organizes all events. And so they're all needing to be reinvented. So Andrea and the rest of the crew definitely need a hug. So send a like on their Facebook page and give them some props. Darren?
Yeah, great guests. I mean, great guests, both, sort of instigating that conversation of, what you and the British Columbia Center for Substance Use, hopefully, we often use the term, we're missing the recovery component, and people got to understand that in that isn't just like a 12-step program, which is what a lot of people sort of assume. And I mean, personally, I'm hearing Darian's story, and I think that would have been so inappropriate because it was said to me to just go to a meeting. Here's an individual with a co-occurring situation, and NA and then people in it aren't going to diagnose him with the autism. And, I know people that don't have that diagnosis. They don't have the ability to accept the other mental health condition that they're dealing with, and therefore struggle more staying clean and abstinent as a result of not knowing why they're so, messed up. Darian spoke about being OCD, and that can really affect people in early recovery. So the component of treatment, seeing an addiction specialist or a psychiatrist, having the ability to stay abstinent over a period of time for these processes to occur. And now the guy has the rest of his life to be who he is, to accept who he is, that free will we're talking about. And I just, if that wasn't there for him, where would he be now? And I just think of all those people that we see walking down the street, judging them for being crazy, homeless, that they could just be someone that needs an opportunity to be abstinent, needs to see a doctor, needs to see a professional counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, and be given the opportunity to then make a decision based on that free will, unaffected by undiagnosed mental health or addiction. And that's what we need. That's what we need.
You can check out those webinars, Google BCCSU recovery webinars, and it should pop up on your Google page there. See you next Thursday, Darren.
Love you, dude.
All right. Thank you very much. And take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk Recovery Radio. Take care, everyone.
See you next week.